Well, hello everyone. This is the Plannerds podcast, and you'll notice that we are one down. Simone is off sick this week, and so the three of us are going to meet together and do our best without our intrepid leader here this week. And hopefully, Simone will join us soon when she's back on her feet. I am Helena, and you might know me on YouTube as Tiny Tiger Collective.
And I'm Lily, and on YouTube, I'm the vegan organizer.
And my name is Michael, and I'm on YouTube as Michael in the Margins. Today, we're gathering together to discuss maybe the insidious side of journaling and planning, the sometimes stationary stress that creeps up on you in this hobby. We have a lot of notebooks, a lot of planners, a lot of ideas, a lot of things we want to express, and sometimes that can become overwhelming in and of itself. And so we thought we would each take a moment to kind of explore what are some of the things that stress us out in our hobby and the hurdles to enjoying our hobby today.
So, um, who would like to start with their current planner and stationery stresses?
Well, I was wondering, Lily, since you gave us a little bit of a hint about, I
Yeah,
think, a very, very common source of planner stress and overwhelm, that perhaps you could kick us off and open up the conversation from there.
I would be delighted to tell you all about my current stationery stress. So, I have a tendency because I love planners and notebooks so much to buy notebooks, think of like really great fun projects that I can do with them, start them, and then realize that I just have like way too many journaling projects and I can't keep up with them all. And then usually what happens is I try to institute like a very strict regimen where I'm like, okay, every day I'm going to do this, this, and this. And then sometimes I think, oh, I'll rotate, and then at some point I just realized like I can't keep up with all of these. So it's quite, in a way, it's like a kind of a silly problem to have, because it just means like I have lots of fun projects that I want to work on. But um and it kind of seems counterintuitive that a fun hobby should like cause stress and overwhelm, but it does because I think many of us are of the in the planning and journaling world are of the perfectionistic type, and I think, Helena, you're going to talk more about that. So once we decide that we want to like complete a project, it kind of goes on our mental to-do list as something that we need to accomplish. And even if we're just doing it for fun, we don't have to submit it to any kind of assessing body, or like we're not getting paid for it. It's not something that we owe to another person. We haven't been commissioned to do it. It's just for our own fun, but it's somehow in our brain it goes into this category of like things that I have to do. And then if you're not doing them and you're falling behind, especially if they're dated notebooks, if they're planners, which is a trap I fell into this year, then it just feels like this huge burden and catastrophe. So with me, usually this happens when I'm on holiday from work, because when I'm working, and I mean we're both academics, so and in fact all three of us are in education, so it's a similar pattern, especially like during term time or semester time. The work is like so intense that you really don't have kind of the time or the bandwidth for much else. And so I usually kind of end up falling back on the like sort of tried and tested journaling projects that I know I have the space to do every day. So my like kind of fountain pen font fun highlight of the day 5-year Hobonichi Tetra that I talked about in our last podcast. And my like very simple I have a Midori. I don't think I showed it. I can't remember if I showed it last time, but I have a very like basic Midori 10-year diary where I just write like 4 lines, like, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened today. I managed to do that. So I managed to do those two. And that's really the kind of like basic minimum that I know I can do every day, because it's fun. It only takes a few minutes. And whatever state I'm in, I always manage to like, keep up with those. For planning, I don't really have a problem because my planners are very much just like tools that tell me what I have to do. So they're not things I have to keep up with. It's the journaling projects that are the issue. So what happens when I'm on vacation is like I start looking at all my notebooks because I have time. And all I do all day is like, watch YouTube videos and cuddle with the dogs and like think about, planner projects or journaling projects I could start. And I'm like, okay, why don't I do doodle a day? So this is just an example. And feel free to chip in at any time because otherwise I'll just talk and talk and talk. But this is an original Tomoegawa paper Hobonichi A5 notebook. And I started this in,
Precious.
yeah, exactly, 2024. So it was like a year and a half ago, a bit more than a year and a half ago now. And I thought I'd do word of the day. Why don't I do doodle of the day? So I thought I'll just, do like kind of fun little things. This was like just like kind of stuff from my everyday life. Um, Sometimes it was like photos of flowers from the garden.
Oh, wow.
Um, Beyond Meat beef burgers, that was exciting. Um, a selenite candle, like just things that we have around the house.
Wow.
So, and I really, really enjoyed it. But at some point, it got to be one of those things that just kind of fell by the wayside. This is James's sewing basket. Um, he does a lot of sewing for uh his puppet costumes, like
Oh,
he
of course.
yeah. So I didn't use it for about a year, I think, and then I was like, right, I need to get back on the wagon with this. And so I drew my glasses, and it's really fun. It's all just fountain pens, and I really like fountain pen art. So I'm about halfway through, and the good thing about this is that it's not dated. So I can leave it and come back to it. And what I think about this one is that I've decided that this kind of project where like I like the idea and I have a lot of fun with it, and then for some reason it just becomes too much and it doesn't like kind of make it into my core rotation that I can always handle. I put it on one of my planner shelves and I leave this for a one book July project. So what I've realized is that finishing journaling project seems to work quite well for me for one book July. So I had another one that I did last year where I'd started this memory keeper with like stickers and washi, and I kind of got halfway through and I couldn't finish it. It was from 2023. So this July 2025, I was like, right, I'm going to finish it, and I did, and that was incredibly satisfying because then I was like, oh, I can actually turn these half finished projects into something completed in a relatively short span of time if I just focus on that. Um, so yeah, that's kind of one way it can go. But another way it can go is where I go totally over the top with dated planners, and I will just quickly share you this situation that happened recently, and then pass on the baton to one of you to talk about your planner stresses. So what happened recently is that Leuchtturm advertising got to me, and I'm on their mailing list, which is probably not a good idea. And they had a 2-for-1 daily planner sale at the beginning of 2026. And they have these new daily planners with dot grid. So it's basically like the chunky 411 notebook. It's just that it has dates, but it's a dot grid page. And I was like, wow, 2-for-1. That's an incredible deal. I must have them. I'll figure out what to do with them. And I tell myself, it doesn't matter about the dates. I can just use the dates kind of like page numbers and it'll be fine. So I decided to use one. I had this great idea, which was inspired by a video that I saw on, I can't remember which channel it was on, but there are a couple of them where they've shown this. There's this new sticker book that I think came out in 2025. It's called the Art Lover Sticker Book, and it's like basically just a whole book of stickers, 350 stickers of like paintings, either really famous paintings or like kind of lesser known paintings, but like kind of from galleries around the world, and they're just stickers. So I was like, wouldn't it be amazing to do like a page a day, put one of these stickers in, and then journal about it? So I started this and I was like, yes, this is going to be my new life. Every day I will write about one different painting. And I think I did like two of them. And then I put some more in that were like ready to go. And then I was like, I can't write an A5 page about a painting every day. Am I crazy? Um,
That's so familiar. I've been there.
so that's basically the kind of situation I get myself into. And then like because the dates are there, you're like, well, it's so simple. All I have to do is do one a day and I keep up with it. But then you have a stack of like 10 and you realize like there's just no way. So that's yeah, that very commonly leads to this kind of terrible, journaling stress and anxiety because they're all there looking at me and they're like, "Are you going to ignore me today?" and and I think Helena, you said like, why don't you do a rotation? And I was like, that's a great idea. Just do a rotation. And then I was like, but how do I choose? And so I ended up just not doing any of them because I couldn't choose like whichever one I felt like I would choose. Then I was like, but then what about the other one? So yes, I have more
Yes.
examples, but that will do for now, I think. Thanks for listening.
That was so familiar. And it really makes me think of like this idea of like orphaning your children, of when you collect all of them at the beginning, when you're full of hope and excitement, especially over the Christmas period. Maybe
Yes.
you've had a bit of rest, maybe you've caught up on sleep, maybe you've, put the year behind you and you think, gosh, I have so much time. I'm so relaxed. This is so easy. I could do that. And it would be beautiful. It would be fun. I would be able to make all these amazing videos from it. And
Yep.
then slowly you realize, oh, wait, hang on. I have a full-time job. Oh,
Mhm.
and I have a family. I also have friends and I want to do things so I can write about it in the journals. And then you realize, oh, I don't have time to keep journals. Why am I
Mhm.
here?
Yep.
And I would also love to hear from Michael later on if you would share about how your cousin is going for you. I suspect you've taken it really, really well from the videos of yours that I've watched. But I've used a cousin before in 2024 Spring Start, so I've had the experience, and I knew that it would take a long time. But even now, I'm still kind of struggling to balance that because if I'm really honest, I think to keep up to date with my cousin, it requires about an hour of journaling a day, and sometimes a little bit more. An hour is if I'm like really on my A game and I crack it open and I'm like, okay, and I'm like, write everything down. Okay, here's the template, here's the things that I write about every single day, and then launch straight into these are my experiences. There's no time for, what ink color should I use? Is that how, should I put in a sticker here? Like, no, like it has to be dive straight in and kind of almost grind out that 1 hour to keep it under hour and not make it an hour and a half, 2 hours. And then I keep my daily toddler journal, but that one I've maintained for quite a while. And there's always 100 things to talk about with what I get up to with my son. So this takes me about 20 minutes a day. So this is very manageable. But the cousin has been something where, let's say I get a little bit busy with work, at the end of the evening, I'm feeling a little bit more fatigued than usual. And I think, oh, yeah, I'll just, maybe I won't worry about journaling today. Let's keep it fun. This is meant to be a hobby. It's not meant to be a full-time job. So it's okay if I skip a work shift today. And then next thing I know, I'll flip it open. I'm like, why are there 5 blank pages? This is going to take me over 5 hours to backdate. And it's one of those things where I really have to stay on top of a habit, or maybe more healthily actually think about how do I give myself grace around having blank pages, or what can I do to really take that pressure off. And also, is this insight for me to go, yes, as much as I would love to be that type of content creator who has 4 beautifully decorated daily journals and an endless supply of content to share and showcase in my videos, I just have to accept that maybe I don't have the time for something like that. And I just need to stick to one small book project, or like Lily, like yours, kind of like these books that I can dip in and out of. And my traveler's notebooks tend to be the sorts of journals where, okay, I might, when I've got a little bit of time, go in and write about my travels or stick in a few pieces of ephemera, but it's not something where it crashes on me as a daily task.
Mhm.
What we talked about earlier was, I think the biggest struggle that I have with stationary stress is around perfectionism.
Mm.
And I notice myself falling into that trap, not once I have my journals, but usually in the months leading up to before either I buy my journals and planners or when I'm about to move into them. So with Hobonichi, as many people would know, they announce what the cover designs will be. So you kind of have a month to start thinking about it over September. And then October the 1st, it becomes released, and then we can all do our purchases. And then once they arrive a few weeks later, then you've got until basically the end of the year as you're thinking about how you're going to move into it come January the 1st, right? And obviously, there's going to be, depending on what journals you buy, like I bought my cousin, there's a December monthly spread available, and there's kind of the last few days of December in the weekly section. So you can move into it a little bit early. And that's when my perfectionism rears its ugly head, but it
Mhm.
disguises itself as excitement
Mhm.
and creativity and inspiration run amok. Because what I do is I plan everything down to the finest detail. What pen am I going to use? What is going to be this beautiful pen that I'm going to carry with me, maybe throughout the year, maybe throughout the month? What ink colors am I going to experiment with? Oh, maybe I need to buy new ink colors to match my new book. And oh, what stickers I start collecting, I start planning out. What's the spread going to look like? What's something creative, fun, original, innovative I'm going to do with this spread, this spread, this spread. And then that's when I realized, what if I'm spinning my wheels, spending hours a week planning out
Mhm.
every single minute detail before I've even made one tiny pen mark in my book? I know I'm setting myself up for failure. And it's
Mhm.
taken me quite a few years of getting swept up into the excitement to realize that that excitement rarely ever pans out and rarely lasts longer than past March. So I'm going to have to learn to be a lot more careful about how I get swept up into the fantasies of my book and stay within the reality of what I can manage without creating extra stress for myself. Once I get into the book, it's a continual learning struggle. But when I make a mistake, when that ink that I spent months deciding on, swatching in my other papers and pamphlets, they don't work out, I have a tendency to say, oh, then this whole project is ruined. I just have to throw the whole thing out. Maybe I need a
Yeah.
new book to start, or just tear out the pages and pretend they never happened. And I've made quite a few mistakes in my cousin already. Maybe I had a particular plan for my daily entries and I forget a particular point, right? Or maybe I smudge something on the side. Maybe I experiment with something and it just looks terrible. And I think, oh, what an eyesore. I have to flip past this every single day when I'm getting to my new page. I just have to take a deep breath and say, you know, this is meant to be fun. This is not something, and I don't stress like that in my day job. I'm like, how does this become more stressful
Yeah.
than my actual job? So I'm not saying I've reached the pinnacle of enlightenment. I'm definitely struggling at the base of the mountain, but I'm learning to live with it and just move on, flip to a new page. Next day is another chance to write something new. And I need to remind myself that the process isn't creating museum worthy artifacts.
Mhm.
And having a YouTube channel can really make me fall into that trap of thinking, oh, but I have to show something impressive. But to think, no, no, it's part of the process of, does this make me lead a more mindful, joyful, and peaceful life? And if journaling every day doesn't give me that, then I need to rethink my practice.
Oh, wow. Well said. That's yeah, that's really it. I relate it's like so much to that like that the kind of process where you described about how you plan out exactly how it will go and then when it goes wrong you're like it's ruined, it's ruined. Yeah, that's yeah, it's awful. If I Michael, I don't want to keep you from talking about your stresses, but I just quickly wanted to share the like kind of worst um instance of that I've had this year, which is actually with one of my planners, where I said like I don't usually get overwhelmed with my planners, but I do have that perfectionism of like not wanting to ruin it. And this year it was with my personal planner. So as you know, because I think we talked about it in our first episode, I was going to use a Hibino for my personal planner like I did last year. And then right at the last minute, I was like, maybe a week's will be better. So at that point, I had bought 2 weeks that I was going to use for language learning journals. And I'd already started the first one, which was Little Me Everywhere. And this actually hasn't made it very far because it was for a work project that actually has turned out to be a bit too much of an extra. I started this informal classical Ethiopic study group like for me and my students. And because it's not compulsory and it's not for credit, it started off the year in October with like I think 10 of us, and now there are 2 to 3 counting me. And
Oh.
so I really haven't progressed very far. And I was like so excited about using this notebook. So anyway, the other notebook, which was unclaimed at the time or unassigned, was this one. And I had vowed in previous years never to buy another one of the shiny cover weeks again because I just don't like the texture. I really like the bow and tie and I like the ones that feel like canvas and I just don't like the shiny ones. They just somehow they feel I don't know, it's like they feel cheap, which is weird because Hobonichi isn't, usually I think everything that Hobonichi does is very high quality, but and these are too, but somehow there's something about it where I don't like the shiny. And I made an exception for this one because I was like, well, I'm not using it as my planner. I'm going to use it as a language learning notebook. So it's not so important. And I really love the White Cat's everyday design. So then when it came time to, make my last minute jump into the weeks for my personal planner on like the 31st of December or something, this was the only one left. And I really liked the design. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to go for it. And then over the coming weeks, I was like, oh, I should have used this one. I wish I'd used this one for my personal planner because now my, immortal shelf of used weeks, which is up there, it will have a shiny one in it. And, I would really like over the year, it would be much nicer to have the bow and tie. And like, why did I do this? And I actually contemplated like just, kind of um, getting rid of both of them and then buying a new blank Little Me Weeks and copying all of my personal planning into that. And I was like, no, this is insane. Like, don't do that. Because, then I would be like, but what do I do with these old ones? I can't throw them away. That would be a terrible waste and it would just be awful. So I was like, just stick with it. It will be fine. You like the design. Everything is okay. And as you can see behind me, I have a Little Me Everywhere Stapo. So, you know, that was my original plan. Like, well, whatever happens to these week's designs, I will have the Stapo for posterity. But yeah, it just and you totally like kind of get obsessed with this idea and you can't think about anything else and it can be just totally overwhelming. So I know what you mean.
So
Yeah, it's
validating. This has turned into group therapy.
Yeah, it always does, doesn't it? Yeah, yeah, but stationary anonymous.
I mean, I really resonated when we were talking about Helena December and feeling so like full of possibility because that's when I kind of dipped my toes into this hobby. It was like right when school was ending, I was going into the break, I was watching all these YouTube videos and I just went like click happy on my, a bunch of internet sites, got all these notebooks and I guess I was just like, well, everything that I do has to have a notebook and its own separate thing. And it was such an embarrassment of riches, like Lily was talking about, that it becomes almost impossible to be like, well, I just watched a movie, so let me get my media journal, but I'm going to be reading later, so I'll grab my reading notebook, and then, but I'm going to want to catch up on the 2 days of my journal and like, you're carrying this pile around with you, and then you're like, I
Yeah.
actually just want to lay down and not think about any of this. Um, but I think like as I've gone on, I realize that I can only really have one dated planner. My daily journal is my dated planner. My other things, my reading notebook, everything is just there are blank pages. And so if I skip a thing, no one's gonna know but me, right? And I've been really, really trying very hard to kind of stick with that. The only one that I'm like backdating still is my media journal because I can't let go of the fact that I have to have every movie I watched last year. Even though I know the list, nobody else does, right? Like no one's coming for me to tell me, well, you didn't write down Paddington 2, right? Like so
Yeah.
um but there's something about it that feels very like I like the completionist aspect of that one. And I have realized that the more simple I can make my non-daily planner, the more likely I am to use it and be happy with it. Like, so I've really pared down all of my journals to like a very simple core, except for my main one. So in my media journal, it is, you know, a gel pen on this paper. That's it. That's all I do. Like there's no decorating, there's no nothing on it. So if I want to take this to the cafe and just write about the last four movies I saw, I need my gel pen, this puppy, and I'm done, right? Same thing with my reading notebook. I've really gotten it
Sorry,
pared down.
Michael. Not
Yeah.
to interrupt, but I thought there was at one stage, were you drawing the movie posters though for what you were watching?
Oh yeah.
So I was. So if you see like there's little like, but what I've
Right.
done is sometimes I just don't have it. And if I go
Hmm.
back to draw it in, I'll go back to draw it in. And if I don't, I don't. Like, um, and it'll be okay. And maybe one day I'll just be in a really drawing mood and I'll pull up 10 of these and just get crazy with them. But the good thing also is like it's a tiny little rectangle. It takes me like 30 seconds to do a little sketch in there. So we'll see if I go back and do those. But I'm telling myself it's not a requirement.
This is the
And
thing.
who knows, maybe one day I'll just so sorry, go ahead.
It's like kind of a test for the perfectionist. It's like, you kind of forcing yourself to be okay with the fact that it's not like perfect, which is necessary because otherwise you just can't like keep doing it.
Yeah, and I keep reminding myself like the purpose of me doing this was to document my feelings about all of these movies. And if I keep telling myself that it has to exactly look a certain way, then I'm not going to do that at all. And so then the whole purpose of the notebook is gone, and I might as well just not do it. Um, and that's been in some ways kind of liberating. And then I realized that I have to just remove all barriers of stress. I recently talked about my reading notebook was in a 365 Stalogy, but it was dot grid. And I could not for the life of me see those dots. Like, I don't know if I'm getting old, I'm approaching, 40, and I like would sit down and I'd be like straining to like write a straight line. And then I was like, why am I making this work for myself? So I just bought a grid and called it a day and just retired the old notebook. And this is the same thing. It's just black fountain pen ink on paper. That's all I do for my reading journal. And I think keeping those kind of ancillary journals like simple means that I'm more likely to do them.
Yeah.
And then for like my
Mhm.
traveler's notebooks where I'm like do more like art collaging or like junk journaling, I guess it's hard. Maybe that could be a different conversation we have one day. Like, what is scrapbooking? What is junk journaling? What is
Yes.
journaling? Right? Like, um, but I just realized for those, I need to just be more kind of selective of the kinds of days I want to do that with. Before I thought like, well, I have a New York journal. So everything I do in New York, whether I go to the corner to like take my dog for a walk, I got a journal about it. And it's like, no, probably not. Um, but I think that's been really, really helpful for me. And even in my daily journal, last year I got very comfortable with doing spreads like this. It's a post-it. It says, I am too tired to write. Like, and calling it a day, right? Um, so I feel like I did it ish, but I'm moving on. It's not blank, but I'm not going to stress myself out about it because there are some days I get home from work and I'm just like, yeah, I would rather cut off my hand than have to sit there and write a whole page. Um, but surprisingly, my cousin Helena, to answer your question, is going pretty well. And I think it is because it is the one place where, and I know that we talked last time, and I feel like I'm in the minority of having ephemera and stickers and things. Like a lot of you were like the scabs in the notebook. Well, call me a surgeon, baby. Scab it up. Like I have my my notebook is like full of scabs. It's all stickers and papers glued in and all kinds of things. But it I guess is like the one place where I can feel like artistically like express myself. Um, and I recently actually like in the video that I'm going to be dropping today, I talk a little bit about how this kind of helps me enter a flow state and almost like
Mhm.
a I'm in the moment at most in my day when I'm just here thinking about this. And so like for 45 minutes, like my husband could like blow up the pressure cooker in the kitchen and I probably wouldn't notice because I'm like gluing my little paper down. Like, um, and it just it brings me so much joy that like I look forward to coming to it every day. And I'm trying very hard to, with the other projects that I have, just keep it as simple as possible. and just, if it gets done, it gets done. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. And that's okay. And it sounds so like I'm so nonchalant saying that, even though I'm literally like sweating bullets about my media journal. Um, but I think, you know, it's probably a good practice for those of us who suffer with perfectionism to make ourselves uncomfortable and push through it.
Hmm.
Yeah, those are some really good tips. I think lowering the barrier to entry is definitely huge. And it's one of those things that it's like when you say it, it kind of sounds obvious, but actually it's really hard to find a way like to do that. I've got like a couple of projects that seem to be working in that respect. So when you talked about ephemera and stickers and washi, I love them, but I've allocated specific notebooks for them because of the whole Tomoe River paper issue. So speaking of junk journals, um, I don't think I showed this last time. Helena has seen photos of it, but this is my junk journal, and it's an
Oh,
Archer
wow.
Olive what they call the Heritage Notebook, which is basically it's like US letter sized, but horizontal, and it's perfect as a junk journal because for one, the thick paper is really good for putting junk in because it's thick. So if you put like all kinds of ephemera in it, it doesn't have the same like scab effect because the paper is kind of like thicker than what you're pasting into it. So I just like literally put all of my junk into this, like things that come in the post and like wrappers and receipts, and James adopted a plushy platypus. That's the adoption certificate. So whenever we get like cards or like kind of birthday cards and things, I put them in here because otherwise I don't know what to do with them. And I used to just recycle them, but now I'm like, I'll put them in here, and then it kind of it's nice to like come across them. And James got into film photography recently, so that's I accidentally, nothing is safe because I found this on the floor and I thought, oh, this is going to the recycling bin. I'll put it in my junk journal. And then it turned out that it is an actual token that he was supposed to send in to redeem, like to get his film developed. I was like, oops, I'm sorry. It's in my junk journal now. Um, and this was a birthday card from a colleague. So yeah, so this is literally only junk. I don't write in it. I just put the junk in, and I found that to be very accessible because if I don't, I usually fill it in, like maybe I add stuff to it once a week, but I don't have a strict like timeline for it because whenever I get, so if ever I get something that's self-adhesive, like and it like one of those sticky address labels, or sometimes there's like a receipt that comes on like sticker paper, I just put it straight in. And then if there's anything I need to glue in, I have the glue stick right next to it, so I try to keep it to just stuff that I can add in like kind of on an ad hoc basis. And then I sort of like finalize the spreads on a day off, and put a date on the date that I finished it. But it's very low effort, because there were times when I would like gather up a whole bunch of like beautiful ephemera, and it was too much to like sit down and cut up and make spreads at the time. So for about like, I don't know, a month or 2 months, I would like have this growing bag of all of these like treasures, and it would be like, when I have time, I'm going to like make all of these spreads. And then finally I was just like, I'm never going to use these. So I just went through and like picked out the two or three like most amazing ones and put them in, and then put the rest in the recycling. And I've done that a few times where I've just kind of like I've kind of had this like fantasy that I'm gonna, really like have this amazing session, and then realize at the end like I'm not going to. It's okay. Um, and so this
Well,
is
I think
again.
that's,
Go on.
oh, I was saying that that's such a like planner, like magpie tendency. Now I find myself everywhere I'm going, like, oh, well, that receipt looks kind of cute. Like, oh, let me grab
Yeah,
that. Like, I'm literally like the trash man, like just grabbing things and
yeah.
shoving it in my bag.
I'm so glad that
My
you
husband,
said that. Oh, please go on.
oh, I was just saying, my husband's perpetually embarrassed. Like, I'm like, well, I could just take that random paper that we sat on. Like,
I really like how it transforms your attitude to junk though, because now whenever anything is like going to the bin or the recycling bin, I'm like, wait, could that go in my junk journal? And James is great because I don't leave the house, so I don't have many opportunities to embarrass him. But he's like, do you want this for your junk journal? I'm like, yes, please. And sometimes he'll say like, do you want this for your junk journal? And I'm like, no, like that is not worthy of my junk journal. but Yeah, most of the time I'm like, yes, give it to me. Or I say, like, can I put this in my junk journal? And he's like, sure. Or else he'll be like, oh no, I need that. And I'm like, okay. So, but it is true. You start, and I think this is like one of the great things about journaling is that it kind of like, like Helena was saying, it kind of um gives you a way to be more mindful and like kind of have more joy in life. And like, what is the ultimate expression of that? But like, enjoying junk, like things that you would just put in the bin. You're like, I love this. This is precious. I'm going to save it and keep it and put it in my journal and it will look beautiful forever.
I think I'm exactly at that place where junk journaling and collecting ephemera for my journals have been creating more stress. And initially, Lily, you had sent me a few pictures of your junk journaling pages, and I thought this is so beautiful. I was mesmerized by them, and I thought actually, with my son being 3 years old, this would be a really accessible way for him to journal because he doesn't write. And so we kept one of my old notebooks. I repurposed it as a junk journal for the both of us to keep. But now I just have these giant bags full of ephemera, things like where we buy him a toy and I keep the packaging. So we think, okay, you've been enjoying that toy so much, we could stick the packaging into this journal. And now my house I think I've become a hoarder because of junk journaling. And I'm normally someone who likes to keep all my counters clear. The moment I see something, I'm like, don't need it, throw it in the recycling. So the fact that I have these bags and bags of ephemera, it's creating a lot of mental and emotional clutter in addition to the physical clutter. But what you just said then about going through and decluttering and going, okay, if, that like perfect 6 hour junk journaling session where we sit down and we like lay all the beautiful pieces out. And, you go back and you go, oh, you know what? He never actually really played with that toy very much. I don't know why I'm holding on to this gigantic cardboard box that I could just like relax and actually put them in the bin where some of them belong. And then, not end up with pages and pages of ephemera to stick in, but just a few. I really like that idea. So I'm going to start implementing that because, yeah, my house has definitely become, a repository for trash because of thinking, but that could go in my junk journal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think it's quite nice to be able to delay the decision because if you just think, okay, I'm putting it in my junk journal bag, and then at some point when you realize it's just getting too unwieldy, you can just quickly go through and be like, okay, anything that like immediately catches my eye and like I can glue in now, I'll take. Otherwise, goodbye. And yeah, you don't have to like make this decision every time you find a piece of ephemera that you think would be good. So yeah, I think that junk journaling, I mean, for me, I've been like really enjoying it because it's very manageable and it's so low stakes because you're literally just pasting in junk, but it ends up with something that looks satisfying and is fun to flip through and it evokes memories. Um, and it's kind of hard to imagine anyone, like telling you that you haven't lived up to a particular standard, like with the way that you've glued in your junk, right? um, but yeah, there's some other I've started, and I'm sort of hoping that they will work out because I really like them. But so what I've basically done is divided my journals into living room and bedroom. So this is like my craft corner of the living room, and this is where I have like my sticker books and all of my supplies for like my various kind of sort of longer term projects. And like stamps and washi and stuff. This is my washi Stopper rainbow. So one project is one that I've done before, which is like a kawaii journal or kawaii memory keeper with stickers. And so I have a lot of kawaii stickers from like One Ton in a Million and Shine the Sticker Studio and Coffee Monsters Co. Like that type of sticker. And at different points over the years, I've used them in different places, like in my weeks, like years ago, and then I kind of stopped using them in my planners because I felt like that was making the barrier to planning too high, and also with the Tomoe River paper issue. But I really like that kind of like sticker decorating. So last year I think it started off as a planner, but it was kind of redundant because it was just like a fun planner. So then I kind of officially turned it into a memory keeper. And so I decided to do the same thing for this year. So this is a Hubman and Chubb Girl A5 wide undated yearly planner, but I've dated it. And this is like just Hawaii stickers only. So the basic idea is that all the stickers go in here, and this is just like a kind of summary. So this is a summary of my month. This is like one sort of highlight per day of the month, and then
Wow.
I've set up all the months, and then I started doing the week. So I set this up also during the winter break. What a surprise! And the idea is that I will do 1 week at a time. So like at the end of the week, I will do that like fill in that week when I kind of know what's happened. And so I just managed to do January, and it's really fun because it's like trying to find the right sticker to fit what you did. And then I just kind of write, like I did this, and I love it. But it I got behind, I think, in like this last week. I was like 2 weeks behind, so I'm still a week behind. So I managed to do this week, and I managed to catch up with the week before last, and then this is this week, which I still haven't done. So I'm living on the edge here because it's a bit too much. But I'm kind of trying to make the rule that like I don't catch up at the end of every day, which was my original plan. And obviously, if we didn't have to work, our lives would be much easier because we could just journal all the time. Then we'd have time for all the journaling projects. But like at the end of every day was just not going to happen. So then I was like, okay, just do a week at a time. That's fine. And then I realized like actually I could even be a week behind. It's okay because it's in the past. So it's not like the information is going to change. And I have it recorded somewhere either in my planner, usually from my A5 Hon, I can reconstruct what I did. And then with the addition of my weeks and my Midori 10-year diary, like I can get like the kind of main things that happened that day. So it's like, okay, even if I get a month behind, I can still keep working on it. So I think that like making the barriers to entry really low so that it's still possible to keep doing it, even if you don't do it at the original timescale that you anticipated, is really important because yeah, otherwise you just give up, and then you're like, okay, that's a half finished project that I'll have to figure out what to do with. And it's agonizing because especially if there are um like pet tape or plastic stickers in, and then you can't just recycle the whole thing, and you have to tear it up, and it's horrible, and then you just feel like a big loser. So it's much better if you can find a way to like make it fit in with your lifestyle.
Yeah, it's so just hearing this over and over again. It's just so interesting that it's like it's a it's a prison of our own design. It's like
Totally, it's
we
so
create
ridiculous.
Well
this
said.
box and
Yes,
we've shoved ourselves into it.
yes, no one cares if we do these things or not, but it's like we must do them, and we must do them perfectly and on a schedule.
Yeah, part of me wonders how long it will take before I start to like, or if I'll be able to continue with like my main journal and my like three little ancillary, or will writing about the media just eventually get sucked back into my main journal. Like, especially now that I'm in the A5, I think when I was, sorry, yeah, when I was in the A6, there wasn't a lot of space to write, especially if I'm going to be decorating. But now that I'm in the A5, I'm like, well, I have a little sidebar. Like, I could just be like, oh, I finished this movie or I did this thing. Like, do I need a separate notebook? But then it's like, do I just abandon the other notebook? I don't know if I can do that. Like I had a bullet journal that I like stopped using, and it was very difficult for me to be like, I no longer use this notebook. Um, it almost felt like a friend had died. And so it I think for my mental health, it'll probably be better for me to just like, yes, like I can just write about whatever I want in my daily journal. I saw a movie, I read a book, I did a thing, and it would probably be easier, but we'll see how my journey, how long it takes, or if I'm able to just juggle. Um, I think I'm very lucky in the sense that you know, uh, I don't have much responsibility other than like my dog when I get home. Maybe if we ever decide to have a family, that'll radically change what this looks like, but um we'll see.
This is a huge
It's
topic, though. Go on, Helena.
I was going to say this is a bit of a revelation, and I'm sitting here exactly as you say, this like prisoner of our own design, going, yeah, like we've put a lot of pressure on ourselves to do things and to do it right, and to navigate exactly as you say those really tricky emotions, whether it's the perfectionism of feeling like a failure or a loser because you had to abandon a journal, or something went wrong and you didn't quite live up to your expectations or your carefully laid plans, and also the grief of saying goodbye to a journal and saying goodbye to all the hope and optimism that you poured into that journal when you first purchased it and you thought, oh,
Yes.
it's going to be wonderful when I review my books and savor the fantastic movies that I watch. I mean, Michael, at this stage, if you give up your media journal, I would grieve because as a busy mom, I get maybe two movies a year and I do not have the time to watch a bad movie. And so when you recommended me Sinners, and me and my partner sat down and watched it, it was one of the best movies. It's easily our top five movies that we've ever watched in our lives. I'm like, yes, see, I need to read your reviews so that I can make smarter decisions about what I do with my dwindling free time, particularly as I'm journaling, right? Like 1.5 hours a day. So it's been really, I see the value in it. I do a bit of media logging in my cousin in the column, but all I have the space to write is like the name of the book I read and the author, the name of the movie or TV series I watched. That's it. So I don't have the space for that review. I do, there's a part of me that wishes, how there's like 10 blank pages on the back of the cousin. If only it was as generous as, say, the Weeks or the Weeks Mega, where if you wanted to, you could say, maybe I'll review my 5-star books in the back, right? And just
Mm.
dedicate like 3 or 4 A5 pages in the back there where I can draw a little line, demarcate, and just write, okay, this is why I loved it. And if someone says, oh, would you recommend a good book? I could quickly flip to the back and remind myself which ones were the standout reads for me in any given year and what I loved about them. So I feel like there is, of course, then I'm creating more work for myself, but it would eliminate the need for me to feel like, oh, well, now I need to create a new project for that. And for me, the ancillary journals are usually travelers' notebooks. So then it's like, well, what cover do I use for that? And what inserts do I buy? And what accessories do I need? And what charms and other danglies do I need on top of that?
That is
And yes, it
essential.
it becomes a whole entire project. And so yes, there's an element where I need to find that balance between what I can sustainably give and then remind myself what was the purpose of creating that need in the first place.
And I think with the whole
Mm.
like reading journal, movie journal, media journal thing, and I agree, Sinners was fantastic. James watched it and he said to me something like, "Oh, I watched this vampire film. It was really good." And I was like, "Okay." And then later, so my close colleague friend and I are one of our um topics that we like to look at is use of language in films, like multilingual films, and we like monster films and vampire films. So we decided to write a um an abstract for a conference presentation on the like representation of different languages in vampire films. Anyway, so like I was looking through and James said, "Oh, like why don't you use Sinners?" And I was like, "What's that?" And he was like, "Oh, this vampire movie I saw." He really undersold it. And then I was like, "Oh," and he was like, "Yeah, it has this." He was like, "Yeah, it has this language in it. It has this language in it." I was like, "Oh, that sounds amazing." And then I watched it. I was like, "Why didn't you tell me about this?" He was like, "I did." But I was like, "Yeah, but you should have told me that it was the best movie ever, and I needed to watch it at once." But it's I think some of it is how like because we all watch the planet community on YouTube, like seeing all of the beautiful reading journals and media journals, you're like, oh, I must make one too. And so I've gone through, I can't tell you how many different like incarnations of a reading journal or a media journal that I've just abandoned halfway through because or less than halfway through because either they ended up being too much work again and I couldn't keep up with them, or I decided like it would make much more sense just to log these in my personal planner. And each time I've had to like give them to James and make him go out and dispose of the body because I was like, I can't do it. I was like, please take this for me. I can't bear to see what happens to it. And like not wanting to have to go through that again is like, you'd think would make me more cautious about starting, reckless new journaling projects again. But every time I'm like, this time it will be different. But I really like, yeah, I really know what you mean about this, like the tension between wanting to have like a separate journal for every area of your life and just wanting everything to like all be in one book so that it's like nice and neat and compact and you don't get this overwhelm. And also I think if you like say you're writing about movies in your main journal, then if you don't have time, you forget to write one down, it doesn't matter because that journal is still being used. So it's not like you're, kind of like failing the
Yeah.
journal in its only purpose. But then it can also be nice to just have a dedicated place where like this is where all of my movie reviews are. So it's yeah, I feel like it's an eternal battle.
Uh, it's so difficult. And then I think there are going to be seasons to my life, and maybe it'll make sense for me to, to have a media journal. I just my current job, like my brain is just on 20, like the entire time I'm there making 1,000 decisions. Like the gears are always grinding, and then I get home and they turn off, and I'm just like,
Yeah,
I just want it to be easy.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah, same. I've got a couple of journals. So at one point I started a dream journal and I don't know why I thought that would be easy to keep up with because I am so bad in the morning. I'm like, it takes me like, I'm like a sloth crawling out of a well, like trying to wake up. And it usually takes me like, a kind of like an hour of like lying in bed. And then like, I'm like, coffee. And then James will bring the coffee. And then like, it takes another while before I'm like awake enough to start drinking it. So I was like, why I thought at this point, before I'm awake, I will be able to open a notebook and write down my dreams. But I did actually manage to do it for a few months, like not every night, but like when I, kind of remembered. And then it followed that same trajectory. I think it actually got about halfway full. And then I was just like, this is like a chore. I'm dreading this. And what's the point? So I put it on the shelf and it's undated and it's like, staring at me. It's like, you haven't finished me. And it's like, oh, it's dreams. So it's like dreams are the epitome of stuff that you can't get back. Like what, like I would never be able to recreate that. So I was like, I can't put this in recycling and I don't want to finish it. So, and occasionally I have like a really crazy dream that I'm like, I'd like to be able to remember that. But somehow I haven't been able to make myself go back and get the dream journal. So I was thinking that might be another One Book July project where I just like make myself write them down for a month. And that somehow seems to work where it's like, I know that it's like, I don't have to do this forever. I just have to do it for 30 days. And then I'll make quite a lot of progress. And if I do that like a few times, then I'll finish it. That's what I'm thinking at the moment. But yeah, for now, it's just on the shelf like, looking all sad and lonely. Same thing with my Korean notebook because I was learning Korean for a while and I had a notebook and I was like, I will fill up this notebook and by the time I finish this notebook, my Korean will be amazing. And I think I got like 30 pages in and I was like, I don't want to learn Korean anymore. So yeah. But I think if they're undated, there is always hope. And I'm trying to like kind of get myself into the mindset that even if they're dated, there's still hope because in the case of like my art history journal, I'm trying to think of it as 2026 is the year that I started it. And that's all it has to be. The dates are just there to give it a structure. And then you can write an index, like you can use it like I do that with the daily pages in my cousin, my five hon, where I just normally I write around the day, but because it's my work planner and not a journal, if I don't have a lot going on that day where I need a daily page, I'll just use it for like any kind of work related notes and then put a note in the index at the beginning, like, July 7th, I made a list of candidates for this scholarship or whatever. So I was thinking like it could be the same. So this leads me to my my most recent crazy experiment, which is the ill-fated Hibino, which I had bought in I think June or July was the pre-order, like thinking, this is going to be my personal planner, and then I realized that it was just too much for a personal planner. I didn't need it. And thanks to you, all of you from our first episode, that works really well. Or was it our second episode? I think it was our second episode. Because you were there, Michael, and I remember
Yeah.
saying I got inspiration from the fact that you use a weeks. Anyway, so I was like, for the last few weeks, I've been thinking like, what am I going to do with this Hibino? Because it's so beautiful, and I want to use it for something, but it's dated, and I don't want to start a 2026 planner in like 2029. Although really, why not? But then I thought I was I was like thinking about it, and then I decided that because I love like kind of just like playing with fountain pen ink, that I would make it into a little like ink kind of
Oh,
attachment
wow.
painting. And then it turned into, so then I decided, because it's got, and it's perfect for that, because if there's bleed through, it's 2 pages per day. So then I thought I can put a little title here, and then kind of write an image here. So I've done, I think, 4 pages, and I thought I'll just make like very simple drawings of natural things like plants and flowers and stuff. And this has been really fun. This kind of went a bit wrong,
Wow.
but let's see. And so this is also one that I leave in the living room. So it's like I'm not going to be like, messing around with my fountain pens and bottles of ink in the bedroom, because all the fountain pen stuff is here. So like just if I'm here and like we're watching a film or I have like time, then I can do this and it's pretty quick. So I'm hoping that, like, again, that the barrier to entry for this will be low enough that I don't like, there's obviously I can't do it every day. Oh, and then this can be like a little table of contents.
Hmm.
Ah,
So
great.
so I'm hoping that that will work, because if I think like, okay, it doesn't matter if it takes me 10 years to fill it, the 2026 will just be a reminder of the year that I started it. And then, every day is just like it's a different picture, and the picture has a table of contents. So I'm trying to like kind of adopt that mindset for dated planners, so that they don't become casualties, because it's really, really easy for a dated planner to go in the graveyard if you mess up or it doesn't go as planned. So I'm working on that, but I'll have to update you, because like maybe I'll realize that I'll do another 10 of them, and then I'll realize that I don't like painting with fountain pens, or I don't know. You can never predict what will happen, but I'm hoping like it's like it's quite easy and fun, because you know, I'm not like trying to win any prizes or anything. So it's just something that's is quite like pleasant and relaxing.
Oh, it sounds like in our whole conversation, it's clear how much books and creative expression in general mean to all of us. And we have, very punishing metaphors that we use as well, like orphaning children, casualties, disposing of bodies,
Yeah,
grieving the death. And there's um, so many painful emotions that are evoked around feeling like we've let our books down or let
you're
down this
right.
hobby in some way. And for a hobby, for something that's meant to be fun, I don't think I talk about like my walking or my reading, in that way, that like
No,
going, oh, I've let down my book because I didn't finish this book when I started and I didn't like, oh my God, what am I doing? I'm murdering this book.
no, you're
So
right.
it's quite fascinating how much pressure I think is laden on this particular hobby. And I love the idea that, when you take a step back and I look at your journals, I look about, what worked, what didn't work, what you decided to pivot or change, or just, completely set aside, because we all live full real lives with your real commitments, struggles, aspirations, changing seasons and priorities, that this is all part of a life well lived. Lily, like, I don't know if you think, oh God, all those like, bodies that James had to dispose of for me and we can never speak of where they're buried.
Yeah.
But for you, if I want to understand, what would be a fun paper to try, or what kind of underrated notebook is fountain pen friendly that I've never heard of, I'll go ask you about it. And
Oh,
so there's an element, because you've experienced those things, you've lived those lives, and then none of them went to waste. They're part of the skill, the knowledge, the wisdom that we've acquired. The abandoned books shows that, maybe that was a season of our lives that we put our self-care first, or put our health first, put our mental well-being first. Or it could be, I was living so much, I was having so much fun, my social calendar was so full, that's why I had no time to come and then journal about it. And then we also have those beautiful books like Michael's that are museum worthy and artifact,
Mm,
of such a creative of imagination and joy and accomplishment. And they also suggest a life well lived and a person with depth and a rich interiority, like your poetry, for example, Michael. It was so
mm,
moving and so healing, particularly in these troubling times,
mm,
that all of it is part of the way that we relate to our lives and the world around us. It's part of the way that we get to live in communion with others and our creative expression. It's the way that we really get to be in flow and nourish ourselves inside out. So I think all of it, failed, not failed, ugly, or absolutely perfect from page to page. It's all part of who we are and the lives that we lead. And the pressure that we put on ourselves collectively is something that only when hearing it is brought me to the realization that wow, we can really show ourselves a lot more self-compassion and self-acceptance.
Yeah. No
I
more
agree.
stationary stress. We get to live in the stationary mess.
Yes, embrace the
Yes.
stationary mess. Yes.
That's so beautiful. I love that we came to that realization.
Yeah, that was amazing, Helena. You're right. Because I think on the one hand, we often, we kind of recognize that we tend to be perfectionists, but on the other hand, like I kind of never really thought about the fact that, like, yeah, like we're like taking this so seriously about, thinking of these, like these books as living creatures that we don't want to disappoint or let down and yeah, or have to bury. So that's a good, probably a good motto for us to adopt is like, forget about the stationary stress and embrace the stationary mess.
And how special it was to also come to that realization together. It was actually very therapeutic to talk through all of those experiences and struggles and see my own struggles reflected in yours as well. Yeah, that was so rewarding to do that.
Same. Thank you. Thanks, both of you. That was, as
Thank,
always, yeah, really, really enjoyable and therapeutic plannered session.
well,
So,
yes, it was
Absolutely.
such a great conversation. I'm gonna go
and
dig a hole to bury some old notebooks. And
and we will be back with another topic. We've still got our the the topic of the journals that we would not rescue if the house was on fire. And many new topics actually that were brought up today as well, like junk journaling and what counts as journaling. And because I often ponder that when people talk about their journals, especially the use of journaling to refer to bullet journaling or like planning. I think it's very interesting how people use the word journal to mean different things.
So
So
true.
so yeah, thanks everyone, and we will be back soon.
Bye.
Bye.